this psychic drew me a sketch of my apparent future soulmate. And as the words were leaving my mouth, I was like, I can't believe I'm sharing this story out loud. This is so embarrassing. Like, I can't believe I've had this sketch done. Now I'm telling people about it. And as I was telling her this story, she said, oh, we're going to have to see this sketch. And I was like, okay, all right. So I got my phone out and I showed her the picture. And as I was showing her the picture, Kathy, the teacher, walked past and she gasped. She said, oh my gosh, I know that guy. I know this guy. Like, it doesn't look exactly like him, but it's got so many similar features, got the same energy. And I was like, fuck off. Like, no way. Like, that's not possible. Welcome to the Enlighten Podcast, the enlightened journey of life. Because we're not just here to chase enlightenment, we are here to live life, to embody all aspects of ourselves, to bring the sacred into every day. I'm your host, Jen Hamilton, self-mastery mentor, tantra guide, and sacred rebel at heart. This podcast is a devotion to the art of knowing thyself. Through solo snippets, raw musings, and deep conversations with epic guests, we explore the sacred, the sensual, and the spiritual, diving deep into self-exploration and always leaving you with something to take away. This isn't just a podcast, it's a portal to awaken, to liberate, to remember who you truly are. It is an honor to have you here. Let's get enlightened. Hello and welcome to season 3 of the Enlightenment Podcast. I am your host, Jen Hamilton, and we're going to have a very special guest joining us. If you're joining us on the video, you'll see this gorgeous specimen, Cass Jones, who is my partner, and he's going to be joining us a hell of a lot more on this beautiful podcast that we are creating a synergy together, because we are both about the enlightened journey of life, which is what this podcast is all about. And, you know, we have a really deep message that we want to continually share and bring forward. And it's a big deal for me to bring Cass onto the podcast and to share this space. And you'll get to know him and the beautiful wisdom that he has to share. And so welcome, Cass.
Thank you very much, Jen. Fantastic to be here.
Yeah, and this is not the first podcast we've done. So if you don't already know, I do have another co-hosted podcast called Intuition and Orgasms with Greg Riley, and Cass has guested on there a couple of times with us already. And I love everything about sharing life with Cass and, you know, the work that we get to do together. And so for this first episode back for this, for season 3, we want to share a bit about our story, because we have a very unique and special story of how we met, how we came to be, and, you know, the vision and the message that we want to bring to our listeners as well. So Cass, gosh, where do we even start? Well, we
can start with your version, Jen.
Well, so we have two very different versions, and we love telling this story. We've told this story quite a number of times, and it's something that is so dear to us. Gosh, let me get my timeline. So I think it was around April or May last year, so 2024. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine who is an incredible psychic medium. He's based on the Sunshine Coast, and he's been a friend of mine for about 7 years. And so we've got a very close relationship. And he rang me up one day and he said, Jen, I've had a psychic draw my soulmate, do this sketch of my soulmate. And I was like, why would you do such a thing? You are psychic. Why do you need to pay somebody else to do this, you know, psychic sketch for you? And he goes, you should get it done. And I said, absolutely not. Like, I'm not paying someone money. I've done one of these years and years and years ago, and it was like just gimmicky. And so anyway, he convinced me that I needed to get it done. And so I got it done. And so I went onto this website of this person and paid my money, and I was like, I can't believe I'm spending money on this, but okay. And so within 24, 48 hours, back comes this sketch and this full report on this imaginary person that was supposedly coming into my life. And I thought nothing of it. And then a few months later, I was on my way to Perth because as you would have heard in the last season, I interviewed Kathy Wood from the Sanctuary of Ananda, who is a Tantra teacher. And I had decided after interviewing her on that podcast that I wanted to study Tantra with her, that was the path that was really calling to me. And if you haven't listened to the episode, I really, really invite you to go back and listen to it because Kathy shares so much about Tantra. She's so wise and knowledgeable in this space. And I learned so much from her, even just on the podcast. And then I mentioned to her that I'd love to study with her. And she was supposed to come to the East Coast. So she's based in Perth and she was going to come to Sydney early last year. And I said, yep, I'm definitely going to come to Sydney and study with you. And then life happened. I had the launch of my co-authored book, Wild Eros, The Power of Pleasure, and just so many things going on in my life that I felt that I was at capacity at that time that she was running the training on the East Coast. And I said to her, look, I'm not going to make it to Sydney, but I'll jump into the next one whenever that's going to be. And so she messaged me around, I think it was around May around May. And she said, just to let you know, I'm pulling back from teaching a bit. I'm not going to be coming over to the East Coast. If you want to learn level 1 and 2 with me, then you're going to have to come to Perth. So I was like, okay, cool. Looks like I'm going to Perth because I wasn't missing out on the training. And whilst I was in Perth, I'd connected with a beautiful person named Jo. But she was asking me if I had a partner, if I was seeing anybody. And I said, no, but I have this psychic drew me a sketch of my apparent future soulmate. And as the words were leaving my mouth, I was like, I can't believe I'm sharing this story out loud. This is so embarrassing. Like, I can't believe I've had this sketch done. Now I'm telling people about it. And as I was telling her this story, she said, oh, we're going to have to see this sketch. And I was like, okay, all right. So I got my phone out and I showed her the picture. And as I was showing her the picture, Kathy, the teacher, walked past and she gasped. She said, oh my gosh, I know that guy. I know this guy. Like, it doesn't look exactly like him, but it's got so many similar features, got the same energy. And I was like, fuck off. Like, no way. Like, that's not possible. And so she said right there and then, she goes, look, leave it with me. I was like, okay. So we got on with the rest of the course and everything was great. And I flew back to Brisbane and I didn't think any more of it. I was like, okay, whatever happens, happens. And then it was a few days later, Kathy messaged me and she said, oh, I need to talk to you. I've got some information. I've spoken to the guy from the sketch. And I was like, okay, you need to call me straight away. So Kathy calls me the next day and she goes, Jen, you'll never believe it. I was speaking at Love Fest yesterday and the guy from the sketch turned up and we told him all about you and he really wants to connect with you. And I was like, oh God, you didn't tell him about the sketch. Did you please tell me you didn't tell him about it? That's so embarrassing. Like, what's this guy going to think? Like, some woman from the East Coast has got this picture and you're in it. And I just thought, okay, this is so embarrassing. So I said, look, if he wants to connect, he can message me on, Messenger, through Facebook or on Instagram. And it was really interesting because I didn't get a message. And then I think it was about a day and a half went by and Kathy messaged me again and she said, oh, has the guy messaged you? I said, no, he hasn't. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he's not interested or something. And she came back and she said, oh, he said that he has messaged you. I've just spoken to him. And so I went into my message request folder on Messenger and I hadn't got a notification on it because we weren't connected on Facebook. He hadn't sent me a friend request. And so it had just gone to my request folder. And I opened the message and there was like a 3.5 minute voice note in it. And I was so excited. I was like a little schoolgirl. And I remember I was sitting at the dinner table with the kids when I was having this conversation with Kathy, and I went into the other room and I listened to this voice note. And when I heard this man's voice and how he spoke and everything that he had to say, I was like, oh. And so, yeah, then we connected and we exchanged voice notes for 2 days. So that was on a Tuesday night that it happened. By the Thursday night, we'd exchanged up to 30 minutes worth of voice notes and messages backwards and forwards. And he said to me, what are you doing this weekend? I really want to come and see you. And then by the Friday, he was on his way to Brisbane on a plane. And so he is sitting right next to me. And we've kind of been inseparable ever since, haven't we? So Cass does live in Perth and I live in Brisbane. And so for anyone outside of Australia that doesn't sort of know the geography of that, we're about 4,500 kilometers away from each other, which is a 5 to 6 hour flight. And we've decided that, you know, everything that we're pouring into this is it's so worth doing the long distance thing at the moment. And so Cass has got a very different side of this because Cass didn't have a sketch. Cass was told certain things. And so, yeah, the mic's all yours. Do you want to share your side of the story?
Well, I guess Cass speaking third person, yeah. I had a belief. That's what I had. And I arrived at said Love Fest to hear our teacher speak. And as I walked into the convention centre, I approached Kathy, our teacher, and as soon as she saw me, she grabbed hold of my arm and she said, Cass, we need to talk. We really need to talk. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I've done something wrong. And she said, I just had this amazing girl in our training, like bright, bubbly, enthusiastic, intelligent, gorgeous, like
keep going.
all these things. And she said, she was amazing. And I said, oh yeah. And she said, and she pulled out this sketch. And I said, sketch? And she goes, yeah, she had this sketch done by this psychic. And it was you. And I said, me? And she goes, it was you, Cass. Like it was your energy. It was you in this image. And so I sort of stopped and paused for the moment. And I thought, wow, okay. And then her partner, Kathy's partner, was there. And he said, here, Cass, I'll show you a photo of her. And I said, oh, yeah, she's definitely a gorgeous girl. There's no denying that. And then he said, yeah, she's a podcaster and she does all these things and so forth. And anyway, I was really interested at that point. And then Kathy, our teacher, had to stand up and go and speak. And so I listened to Kathy talk. And then as the show was sort of completing, I thought to myself, oh, this girl, she's in Brisbane, all the way in Brisbane. And I sort of left there and I arrived home and it was 6 o'clock. And I think the thought that came over me was, I am not going to be able to move forward in my life until I make contact with this person. Like I truly believe if there's an image of me connected to a woman, regardless of where she is across the globe, but in Brisbane, this is something that I really need to lean into. So before I went for a walk, I sort of messaged Kathy's partner and I said, you said she's a podcaster. Can you just send me a link to a podcast because I just want to hear a voice. That's all I want to hear. Like for me, the voice and her words was really the language and substance to who she is. And I went on my walk and I arrived back and yeah, he'd sent me everything, like all the podcasts and Facebook profile and all these things. And so I flicked through all of that and I listened to a podcast and I heard a voice. And not only did I hear a voice, I then started to hear so many of the synchronicities that are in her life that are aligned and the same in mine. And I thought, wow, there's something in this that's really special. And so I went to bed and I sat there and I said out aloud, I said, should I contact this person, Jen Hamilton, tomorrow? Should I do that? And so I went to sleep. And then as I woke, the first words that came into my mind was, when you lived in Brisbane, you lived in Hamilton. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. So today's the day. So I thought about it. All right, I got to send her a message. How am I going to do this? You know, got to send her a text message? No, I'm not going to send her a text. I'll send her a voice note. And I recall the actual moment. I'll never forget it because it was a full somatic, full body experience for me. I was sitting on my lounge room floor and I was like, right, just send her a message. That's it. Just send her a voice note. And I'm sitting there and I'm completely anxious and it's coming over me and I'm shaking off this nervous schoolboy energy. And I'm talking to myself going, what is happening to you right now? Why are you feeling all of this? And I'm laughing at myself going, I don't get it. Anyway, I recorded the message and I suggested that, there's these synchronicities and there's this language and there's things we cannot see. But in all of this, there's something that I really feel that we need to connect into. And so I sent the message and I didn't get a response. Next day, I didn't get a response. And I thought to myself, okay, that's fine. I put it out there. I lent in. I listened. I lent in. And that's my part in this very moment. And then I was telling a friend of mine later on that afternoon, actually, that I sent this message. And she goes, have you heard from her? And I'm like, no, I haven't heard anything. And then all of a sudden I received this message and I was like, oh my God, this message. And she's like, listen to it now. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go home. I'm going to make this special. So I arrived home and I sat down and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to play. So I played the message and we still have those messages actually right from the beginning. And I remember hearing her words and I thought, wow, I love this girl's questions and I love her energy right now. And so I responded and then Jen responded and these were long voice notes. These were half an hour at a time. There was a point, Jen, like I was taking notes. Like I was like half an hour, I've got to respond to all these things and I've got a diary out and I'm writing all the key points down of things that I have to address in response. But in all of that, we deeply got to discover ourselves. And I think there was something really special in being able to meet and introduce each other in that fashion because we truly deeply expressed ourselves in every voice note. And the person on the other end of that really listened and they really received that and they heard that. They weren't waiting to respond and the next thing to say and then take them out of the space of listening. They were deeply listening, or Jem was deeply listening. And there was a great connection in this space. And then it was, Thursday morning. And I messaged Jen and I said, what are you doing this weekend? And she said, why are you coming to Brisbane? And I said, I am. But what I felt in all of this, like every part, was I felt a golden thread pulling from my chest. And I've only ever had it a couple of times before in my life. And it was like an internal guidance activated within me. And I didn't fully understand why, but I also knew that it was something deeply important to me. And I knew there was something in this that I needed to follow and step into. And so I stepped into that with complete trust. And it was in that moment, in the weeks and months, and led me to where I am today, 9 months later. And that is the belief and the power of believing. And from the moment we met, I had a strong sense of belief. And I knew this was right. And I knew this is exactly where I need to be, which is why I'm here now. It's and along the way, we're continually reminded of the synchronicities that align us and really listening to that language that, often we cannot see, but we have a feeling, or we do see these small things, these little suggestions, which are just confirmations along the way. And all those little confirmations really confirm where I am and confirm my feelings and confirm the alignment that I'm in of where I'm to be right now. So, it took Jen and I, it took both of us courage to lean into this you know, to lean into something for which we're stepping into a space where we haven't even directly spoken to each other on the phone, yet we're completely open to receive in this very moment, with no expectations either. Just being open of the potential of what could be and allowing whatever that was to come in. So, yeah. Thank you for asking a question, Jen. Great to share. I love that moment.
This episode of the Enlighten podcast is proudly sponsored by the Sanctuary of Self, your portal to self-discovery and creating a sanctuary within. At the Sanctuary of Self, our philosophy is rooted in the belief that true transformation begins with knowing yourself deeply. Here you'll find my signature programs. It's the home of all of my Tantra offerings, including in-person sessions in Brisbane, workshops and trainings all around Australia. I invite you to start with the Flourish Collective membership, a nurturing sanctuary for personal growth and transformation. This membership offers a greenhouse of resources, including workbooks, meditations, and soulful self-paced practices designed to help you cultivate alignment, purpose, and self-love. At only $44 per month with no lock-in contract, you can access an abundance of resources, videos, ebooks, meditations, and workshops with new content added monthly. Head to sanctuaryofself.love for all the juicy details. I want to also dive into like when we physically met as well, because Cass booked his flight to come over, and we hadn't spoken on the phone, we hadn't FaceTimed. You are not active on social, like Cass is not active on social media at all. So it's not like Cass shares photos of himself. And I think your profile picture is like a good, like 40 years old. You hadn't changed it in a long time. So, and then I was like, who am I looking for, when you come to Brisbane at the airport? And I was like, okay, send me a current photo so I know exactly what you look like, because your profile picture is just the side of your face. And I'd be like this through the airport going, is this you? Is this you? So we exchanged current photos and Cass didn't know until when he was arriving that I was at the airport gate. We hadn't made any plans of where I was going to meet him. So I did send you a picture when I was at the gate so that you knew to look out for me when you were coming off the plane. And so it was really interesting because as I was driving to the airport, that's when the nerves started for me. That's when the butterflies started, like, oh my God, this is real. Like, what am I doing? Like, this guy's flying in to see me. And I had asked him, I'm like, oh, is there anything else that you're planning to do while you're in Brisbane? Are you catching up with friends? He's like, no, I'm coming to see you. And I was like, great. And, let it be known, Cass had booked accommodation. Like, he'd booked himself a hotel. There was no expectation of, us spending any amount of time together. It was just, I'm coming to see you. I want to meet you in person. Let's just see, where we go. And you had a one-way ticket and a bag full of stuff to be like, I don't know what I'm doing or how long I'm staying for. I'm coming over to Brisbane. And so I'm waiting at the gate and I'm messaging with my best friend and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm feeling so nervous. Like I've got the butterflies and oh my gosh, he's landed. Oh my gosh, they're all starting to come off the plane right now. And I remember the song by Rihanna, We Found Love, was playing at the airport. And I was just like, of course it is. Like, it was just one of those sort of those synchronistic moments, because the song goes, we found love in a hopeless place or something like that. And so I remember just waiting for all of the people to come off the plane. I'm literally just like gazing at everyone. Nope, 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 nope. And then we just locked eyes and we just saw each other. And it's like we just knew each other. And I ran up and we hugged and we said hello, and I couldn't believe like this person that I had spent so much just energy in getting to know someone in literally a couple of days that probably knew more about me than most people in my life did, because we were just so open and sharing so much of ourselves in such a short period of time, was then standing like in the flesh in front of me. And it was great. There was a lot of energy, wasn't there? There was a lot of nervousness from both of us. And I think we just sort of found ways in which to comfort each other, I guess, like just sort of make each other feel really safe in that. So we went back to my car, and Cass had no idea that I had planned dinner at my place because he came in sort of in early evening, like a 5 o'clock land or something like that. So we almost couldn't find my car getting back to the airport. Usually I take photos of the car parking bay that I park in, and the level that I'm on, and that was all gone from my mind because my mind was elsewhere in those moments. And so we got lost in the airport car park. Finally found our way out, and I said, oh, look, I've got dinner on at home, come back to my place. And so we came back to my place. We were just chatting for ages. We didn't drink any alcohol. We didn't have wine or anything like that. We were just so open, and we just sat on this actual couch that we're on now, and just chatted for hours. And I said, oh, I've got dinner. I've made I was vegan. And so I'd made vegan pasta. For those of you that don't know, I'm no longer vegan. That's probably another episode that I'll do some sharing in. So I'd made a beautiful like a tempeh bolognese and pasta, and we sat and had dinner, and then went back on, just sat on the couch chatting some more. And then it was, I think, like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I said to Cass, I said, oh, I'll drive you to your accommodation. Let's catch up tomorrow, and let's have a cacao in the morning and just lay in the sunshine, because it was the middle of winter, and so we just wanted to be outside in the sunshine. And so so the next morning I went and took cacao, and we laid in the park and in the sunshine, and again just chatted for hours and hours and hours. And there really wasn't a lot of flirting or anything. Like, it was more just getting to know each other. It was very respectful space. And we just enjoyed getting to know each other and spending time in each other's company. And then it was sort of, I think, mid-afternoon, and the wind had started picking up, and it was getting quite cold. And I said, well, look, why don't we go back to my place, and I'll put the fire pit on, and we'll just kind of hang out. And so that evening I was really mindful. Like, we both we then had a discussion that we wanted to spend the night together, but we didn't want it to involve intimacy. Like, we were really, really mindful that we didn't want to just sort of rush into everything, all of it. So we spent the night together, which was, we both created that boundary. And I think it was a chance for both of us to respect each other's boundaries. Because it is like when you start to develop feelings for someone, or someone, you're connecting with someone, sometimes you just want to jump each other's bones and rip each other's clothes off. Like, it's such a normal expression. But we're also really mindful that our connection was more than what was physically there. And so we spent the night together, and then you took my car, didn't you, back to your accommodation, and then got your stuff, and then you came back here for the rest of the Sunday. And then you're like, okay, I've got to get back to Perth. And then you jumped on a plane that night to go back to Perth. And I knew that at the moment that like Cass left and I got home, I knew that I would feel his presence here. And I really did get home, and I was like, whoa, what was that? Like, who is this man? How have I got such a deep connection with this man, really strong feelings without being intimate, wanting to spend more time with him, also really mindful that he lives on the other side of the country. What now? What next? All of that. And so, and then like from your side of the thing, like, you had to get on a plane. What was that plane ride home like for you?
I'll talk about the plane ride here.
Oh, tell us about the plane ride here. Absolutely.
I think, pardon the pun, but I didn't really land in this experience probably until the half an hour leading into our descent to landing into Brisbane. And then I was like, wow, this is real. What am I doing? What have I done? What is this? And I remember I landed and would turn my phone on, and then I see a photo of Jen standing at the gate. Well, not a photo of Jen, but a picture at the gate. And I was like, wow, she's out there. And I remember so many butterflies in this moment, and it was just like crazy. And I was like, okay, this is a moment to completely surrender. Like, it's all about surrender right now. Surrender and being open to receive. And I remember you know, I sort of knew what Jen looked like based on some photographs. And yeah, as soon as I saw Jen, I just walked up to each other and held each other and just held each other tight for some period of time. And then we walked down to collect my bag, and I remember glancing at each other. It's like we're trying to check each other out in the flesh.
Yeah.
Like I remember we're both sort of looking across and catching each other's eyes. You're sort of looking at this person, and yeah, it was so crazy. And yeah, the moments we have, like, I didn't expect Jen to bring me back to her place, and part of me was like, oh, you're taking me back to your place tonight? And I'm like, I have boundaries. Like, but anyway, Jen prepared a lovely meal, and there were hours of conversation in that. It was really beautiful. And yeah, went back to my accommodation, and yeah, the next day it was a lovely day in the park. It was really beautiful. But jumping on the plane to leave here, I think I had really similar experience to Jen. I was really taken, and part of me was like, I don't even understand what just happened. Like, I don't understand. And I arrived home, and I remember, I think it was on the Sunday night I arrived home. And then the Monday, I was in the backyard in the sun. It was in the morning. And in that moment, I just had a lot of information sort of come through me. And it showed me some visions and a picture and all this. And I was listening and I was watching it all come in. And I went, all right, I need to lean into this more right now. And so it was that same day I contacted Jen and I said, what are you doing in 2 weeks? I need to come back over. Yeah. And again, I didn't know what that was. But I had to follow where I was being guided. So, yeah. And then we did it all again.
Yeah, you were back 2 weeks later, and it was only for a couple of days as well because, you know, I've got 2 kids. I wasn't prepared to blend Cass and kids straight away. We did wait a couple of months for that because, you know, there was stuff for both of us in that. And obviously I had to, you know, be really mindful of the kids' experiences as well, of who I bring into their life. And I want to share one of the funny things though, and that's that was the meal that I prepared for dinner. Now, I didn't know this. So in all of the incredible deep conversations that Cass and I had leading up to his arrival into Brisbane, I was very out there. I was very open about being vegan and my values around veganism. And Cass didn't tell me that he was carnivore.
Strict carnivore.
Strict carnivore. So because I didn't also say that I was going to prepare dinner for him, there was no conversation about food. So he's kind of gone, oh, what are we having for dinner? And I've said, oh, I've made it like a nice tempeh bolognese and like standard like gluten pasta and all of the things. And and he ate it. You ate it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. It was delicious. Absolutely delicious. Loved it.
Yeah. Completely out of sync with what you traditionally were eating at the time. And one of the things that was really important to me, because I know how, I guess, somewhat daunting that would have been for Cass to take the lead to say, well, I really want to meet you. I'm coming over to the other side of the country to meet you. You know, I'm flying in, I've organized accommodation. I want to get to know you and I want to meet you in person. You know, for me, I wanted to show up for Cass. That's why I went to the airport to meet him at the gate, to be like, well, I'm not just going to meet you in the car park or just get you to get an Uber or meet me somewhere. It's like, no, I'm going to show you that I want to create safety for you just as much as you're creating safety for me. And interest and connection as well. Like, I couldn't imagine what it would be like if it was like, okay, cool, just get an Uber. Like, here's my address. Or like, oh, let's just meet at a restaurant somewhere that's really noisy or something. Or, you know, I felt as though I wanted to put in the effort to show Cass that I was, you know, prepared to, you know, connect in similar ways. Like, he'd come all the way on, you know, a 5-hour flight to be here. I wanted to show him that I cared. And so that was meeting at the airport. That was taking him back to my place and having dinner prepared. That was driving to his accommodation and meeting the next day for cacao. So we were both equally leaning in. And I think that's something that we've always done ever since as well for the last, 9.5, 10 months, is that we've both, really made an effort. And it takes effort. There are a lot of challenges that, we'll share in other episodes, some of the challenges that we've faced by having a long distance relationship and what that looks like. And especially because, we both individually work for ourselves. I've got 2 kids, so my dynamic is very different for when I'm able to travel to Perth. I've been to Perth 3 times. Yeah, 3 times, which I've been able to come over for longer periods of time because I've worked it in with more of my tantra studies and things that I've had to do over there. And the times that you've been here, sometimes they've been a bit shorter. We had a big chunk of time last time because it was just at the end of the year and the start of the new year this year, and then integrating time with the children and all of these different things that we've had to go through. And so there has been challenges. There's been many challenges, but we also know that those are the opportunities for growth. And that's also things that we'll speak into, is that the way in which we're committed to growth within ourselves personally, and then ourselves, so our relationship together. Because we have a lot of people, like the people that are around us, that get to see us in relation with each other. We went down to Byron with some friends the other day, and the friend that we went with and stayed with, she was like, wow, you guys have got such a beautiful relationship, and the way you talk to each other, the way you honor each other, the way you connect, it's so beautiful. And I mean, it's a deep love that we have for each other. We are committed to each other, and we're committed to growing and evolving together. And that takes work as well. It takes so much work individually on ourselves, first and foremost, for us to come together and continue to grow and evolve and expand in our relationships. And it's been a journey, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been journey's an understatement, really.
Yeah.
It's been some very, very challenging moments in this with us, but in each one of those ultra challenging moments for both of us, there has been so much growth. And I feel there'd be times in the past or different relationships where you'd really make so much meaning of that as a indicator of incompatibility. But for us, it's really been an opportunity to acknowledge those things that are most challenging in there and how they reflect of who we are and what we're bringing forward into relationships and what we're projecting into a current relationship. And for me, that's personally been one of my greatest challenges, because of all the challenges that I've had, none of them have been reflective upon Jen. Every one of those has been reflective of something within my own self. So the challenge within that is been really acknowledging that and working through that and pulling that apart. And I think taking that level of self-responsibility and ownership of those things and separating it outside of the relationship, because it's not a reflection of who Jen is at all. Like Jen is this beautiful, vibrant person that, I met, 9 months ago at the airport, or for when I first heard her voice. And I definitely don't want to bring forward my own stuff to, hinder at all how I see both of us in our relationship. And that was one of the most important lessons that and still is to this day, that we both learn. But that's what makes it just so beautiful, I find, and so nourishing, and with so much growth.
And just like, we have to choose each other every day. We have to choose to show up and do the work. And I think that, we see it as a very conscious relationship, and we're both, we both work with plant medicine. We're both in, spiritual and personal development. Cass is, trained in NLP masters, stepping into the coaching space more and more. We're both tantra facilitators. We're working on things together, and we have this foundation, a really solid foundation of personal growth first and foremost, and then to be able to bring that into a relationship together and bring it out together. Like we've created a workshop that we're bringing forward together to teach other people the foundations of Tantra, because it's something that's so dear to us, because ultimately it was Tantra that brought us together.
Yeah.
It was our teacher that just played Cupid, because you had stepped into you'd done your up to level 3 training before I was even doing level 1 and 2. And so we'll do another podcast on our individual experiences of Tantra and what we're bringing forward together, because we're both so passionate about holding space for other people to grow and evolve. Like we're both growth junkies, really. And to be able to share what we have, like it's a big deal to step in and have you on the podcast and to do workshops together and facilitate together, yet it feels so right and so natural, for where we are in our lives. And one thing that I love about Cass is just his wisdom and his big heart and his ability to just speak so beautifully and articulate things and really connect with people. And and I know that there's going to be so many people that get to listen to you on here and just receive so much of you, because there's so much magic that you have to share.
Thank you.
And so with that, we are going to, we'll do regular episodes together. You'll hear a lot of Cass. He's got a lot to share. And also, if you're listening to us, whether it's on Spotify or Apple, YouTube, wherever you're listening to us, please feel free to leave comments, leave questions that you have for Cass or for myself. Connect in with us on social media. We've got the Enlighten podcast on Instagram. There's my personal page, Jen Hamilton Official, which you can connect with me on. We really wanted to, spend this first episode coming in and sharing our story of how we got together, but also not give too much away, because there's so much more magic, like, the synchronicities that we've had and that we've shared together, and, different experiences that we've had. And, we've constantly said, in certain conversations, we need to make this a podcast episode, so you'll see us on the couch often, when we're in person together. The plan is to share more of this, because we know the magic that we have cultivated in this relationship. We do put work into it. It's not hard work. I don't see this as hard. And we actually had a conversation today about, I shared with Cass, like, why I wanted a relationship, full stop, and for me, I'm not of an age in my life where I'm focused on, well, I need to have children, I need to procreate, and that's why I'm looking for someone in a relationship. It's very different for me these days, because I have children, and that's not what we came into this with. It's that companionship, to spend life with someone that you get on with so well, and that you can, go on adventures with, and grow and evolve with, and just share special moments together. There's nothing quite like companionship and doing life with, your bestest friend, that you have so much in common with and connect so deeply with and have so many aligned values with. And also, whilst maintaining our independence and the love for our individual things that we enjoy doing as well. So, and then going back to our individual states, and then coming back together, and then going back and stepping back in, and just experiencing life. And this is the season that we're in. This is where we're at, and we are so open to sharing our story as well, because we're solid in ourselves, and we're here, and we're doing the thing, and we have a lot of beautiful people in our circle as well that often ask, like, what was the story? How did you get together? I think one of the biggest things that I get asked is, who did the psychic sketch? Like, what was the name of the website? So if you're curious about that, feel free to send me the message and I'll send you the details. Not saying that it works for everyone, but, the fact that I had this done, and then I had a conversation with someone, and then someone else saw the picture and said, oh my God, I know that person, and connected us. Like, I mean, I guess we can safely say it worked. So let it be a statistic that we're part of. Anything else you'd like to add, Kaz?
Really want to honor the opportunity I have to sit here with you. Like, I know how special this space is for you, and I feel really privileged. Really privileged, and I love to be in a space and an environment in supporting people to discover themselves, and it feels in complete alignment where I am, and to add another layer of that, to be in a relationship where I get to walk the talk with someone that has a growth mindset to work through things at a very deep level, is just so inspirational. And I'm excited to impart some of these tools, to other people and share this story. Like, it's just a beautiful opportunity and a privilege to have. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. I'm so glad you're here. So yeah, you'll definitely be seeing more of us. There'll be more interviews coming in this season. There'll be obviously more solo snippets where I'll jump on and share musings, drops of wisdom, whatever that looks like in those moments. So thank you so much for being on the journey with us, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enlightened podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is Enlightened_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enlightened, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.